And you know, again, I'll go back to, we are the voice, and but we're not a voice that is going to shout in the wind when we think that that's detrimental to the community.
Well, absolutely. You know, and we've discussed this before about that very idea. And it was a philosophy when we began in the chamber, because I've got to speak a lot about it. A lot of people said, well, why are we worried about whether they widen the highway or not? I'm not too concerned about it. I know how I vote within the board, but when the politicians come to you and want support for certain things that's going on in the city, you've got to think about the non-business population. And I think that's, as long as you keep that attitude there, you're going to have acceptance for the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, there was a lot of concern about a certain place called West Bowie when the changes were going on.
And the Chamber was very active in making sure that when 450 did its shift,
which is what we're referring to,
yes, that the new 450 wouldn't be a completely negative impact on the existing businesses that were along old 450.
Sure.
And
it did, however, have an impact. Anyway.
It certainly did. It certainly did. But the fact that the Chamber was there to try to help in any way possible, and it didn't necessarily have to impact members. It also had non-members that were impacted, and the Chamber was there to try to help that through. John Henry King, of course, was very helpful from the city level as well.
That's the economic director, the economic development director for the city.
For the city of Bowie. And
you were on this program many times to advertise what was happening during that process.
Your father was standing down in the middle of the street, I think, with a sign, wasn't he?
That actually was me.
Oh, was that you?
Yes, yes. He was in the background. Yeah, keep shouting loud. That's not true at all. But you know, we were very vocal as far as a business group to try to help that effort, and that's the bridge building that we were talking about.
It was successful.
Yes, absolutely. And the fact that we came up with a campaign of West Bowie Village, it's a small effort, but it's something that we're all able to, under the leadership of the Chamber, help out with.
Well, that's a good point now, because that bridge closing had a lot to do with the position business people took as well, long before it did happen for a while. But the city and the mayor and council people said it was not their responsibility, and they weren't even going to bother with whether that bridge was closed or kept open. And a lot of voices in the business community, and I had a personal one with the mayor at the time.
Is that Dick Lowe? Yeah.
And I said, look, how do you know that they were not going to spend money upgrading the bridge? It's not their bridge. It was the railway's bridge. I said, well, why don't you get behind the railroad to upgrade their bridge? Well, they did. Yeah. And there was some changes made. But the point is, the Chamber was involved in that, and that was for safety, like you're speaking of what's good for the community. Plus, what we argued at the time is don't separate the communities. Right. I mean, keep that bridge open, because the communities there, business and otherwise, that's Bowie.
Speaking of the communities, though, speaking of them, I'd like to ask you in this time of financial woe, is the Bowie Chamber, are you guys getting a message from your members and from the businesses in general that we're feeling the pinch here as everywhere?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. And, you know, I'll go back to the PEP, the Protect, Enhance, Promote. I think our phones are ringing a little bit more saying, what are you doing for me, as opposed to, you know, I've given my check.
Yeah, good point.
You know, it's where you have to justify each dollar you spend. And I know I do it with myself. Let's take our chamber memberships. You know, how am I going to get a return on an investment? And really, it boils down to activation.
Right.
So if I am just cutting that check and sending it in and not, you know, activating my membership, yeah, it's going to fail, and it's not worth money. But I think part of your question is are they saying, listen, I need more help, or is it, you know, something where this economy in general is suffering? I think our local economy, you know, and I'll be interested in hear your comments, Mark. I think our local economy is more stable than the noise around us.
I think you may be right. I do notice much smaller crowds in local large-scale stores. I'll go to the Giant, and they'll be I'm not used to seeing so many, such a smaller number of people.
Right.
And in a lot of the box stores, I've found that.
Right.
Yeah, on the retail side of it, without question, behavior means an awful lot. I think the fact that, as you mentioned, we're fairly insulated in this area. A lot of government workers,
A lot of federal workers.
a lot of federal workers. So these are people who have stable jobs and incomes. The difficulty is that with all the noise that you talked about, the buying habits, the behaviors change so drastically.
Well, how about your sales? How are your sales selling cars?
It's been up and down as far as nothing that's we typically had a very even. Very normal curve in terms of sales, but it has been much more drastic in terms of the swings that happen, and for a variety of reasons. But I had a customer in recently. The customer said that in the last year things have been going very well for myself and my husband. She said that income-wise we're at the best that we have been in the time we've been married.
Wow.
She said that the difficulty is that we have so much going on around us in terms of poor news, economic forecasts. She says we don't want to spend any money.
I think that plays a big role. Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And she said, and this is by her own admittance, I know I'm part of the problem. So people who are in that type of mix have to kind of recognize that the burden's not on them,
right?
But they share it and
they're participating.
Yes, exactly.
I clip coupons now. I go online for shopping coupons.
And that's great. Expenses are something that you always have to watch, but to completely freeze what it was that you did in terms of a normal type of buying habit, that part really cripples the economy and makes that anchor so that it takes a whole lot more effort to get us going.
And I think one of the lessons here is retain your customers.
Right. Well, you are.
We're retaining the customers, and our margins are not as good, John.
Really?
So, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because
your turnouts are smaller.
Turnouts are fine.
Yeah.
It's the margins of the big ticket items.
Okay.
Okay. So that suffered. And so I think when we've spoken in group settings in business, our philosophy is maintain your customer base. If you have to lure them in with different incentives, or quite frankly, take less of a margin.
Yeah.
That is okay, because the customers, once they're gone, they might be gone forever.
Right.
If you keep them involved, then you're gonna be successful in the long run. So that's part of the message that I think that has been sent out here is retain those customers, be loyal to the customers. It's a heck of a lot more expensive to get a new customer in a lot of our businesses than to retain an old customer. That's the truth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you really got a good point there. I think and very timely too, John. And speaking of purchasing from Mark, same way with Bayside. Got a good reputation, clean environment. Everything you've worked on.
Well, I was hoping though that one of your financial cutbacks would be those fireworks at night, which I have to listen to every single night from the bedroom window.
And you don't have to pay admission to do.
Yeah, I don't see them. I just hear them.
So how lucky you are.
John, I know that your bedtime isn't as early as that.
It's around 9 o'clock, isn't it? 9:30?
Later than that, John. Yeah.
10, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, most of the shows are 10 to 10:30.
That's right. Yeah. That's
We're just trying to help through the Bay Sox. I'm sure they're trying to help you. Just encourage you to read a book. Stay up a little bit longer.
Boy, he's sharp, isn't he?
Yeah,
It's
I'm
good.
sorry.
Just
He's
wham,
good. I've
that's-
hired him on retainer.
Spin.
I'll tell you, that's one of the best pieces of advice what you two have talked about for the benefit of our viewers.
Yeah.
Particularly not only the consumers, but the business people that are tuning in, hopefully. And that's things you pick up when you visit a chamber meeting. You might pick up an idea like that, attending hospitality hour after 5 o'clock or whatever you're having. Is any events going on in the next week? Because we'll be tuned on this program next week. So any events going on in the next 2 or 4 weeks we need to let the viewers know about.
We have a golf tournament coming up, and we always have a great time. I mean, when you get business people together, you know it's going to be a good time. So,
That's right.
so we have that. That's coming up at Glendale, September 11th.